Okay, we are going into our work and briefing session at 6:02. One of the things that I would like to communicate, and Mr. Hager has some pressing business to take care of. So if possible, if we can get his executive sessions out of the way actually during our briefing session, so we don't have to carry him out into council. He has a substitute.
Yeah, I got one of my associates that will be here who's briefed on the agenda tonight, but I don't think this will take 5 minutes on the briefing, just so you know, for me.
Okay.
Executive session.
Yeah, the executive session will be very short.
Okay. All right. So we'll
That's good. Mayor, we'll do it first.
let's get them all the way now then.
Okay.
Okay. So, folks, we are going to recess our briefing session at 6:03. We're in our briefing session. Mr. Huckman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight on your consent agenda, item 4A are the minutes for the November 17th City Council regular meeting. Item 4B is a resolution authorizing award of bid for water utility improvements along Lakeside Drive to Munice Construction in an amount of $291,855. This project is going to replace approximately 731 linear feet of 8-inch PVC water main and install 12-inch PVC along Lakeside Drive, and this will be from Park Lane to Steger Drive. The project should take about 90 calendar days. We have used, Denise was the low bidder. We have used them before and have had excellent performance from them. And these funds are in the FY20 Utilities Capital Improvements Project Fund. Item 4C is a resolution authorizing purchase of personal computer hardware and related equipment from Dell USA. This is through a Texas Department of Information Resources contract. So we get pricing through them and discounted pricing from Dell for all of our technology and equipment. We typically get about $1,000 discount from Dell on each device. This is part of our technology replacement fund. We've gone to a standard where we're replacing or evaluating all of our computers, servers, keyboards, and so forth, and replacing them on an as-needed basis. So that is what this is, purchase replacement.
So how many hardware is this?
Well, this is a variety of hardware. It's a variety of laptops, desktops, as well as servers, and then other related equipment like keyboards, mice, and things like that.
Yeah, it's on an as-needed basis. It's not a bulk.
Well, we have a schedule of what is scheduled for replacements this year.
Right.
Again, we don't have a certain number though.
You know what the number is?
I don't.
I mean, there's a lot of different equipment, so.
And it's not as needed, it's just replaced.
We actually evaluate every year, and if at the end of the 5-year period we decide it doesn't need to be replaced, then we replace it. If not, we'll keep it. We're actually keeping some servers for a couple of extra years.
So what do we do about the new ones then?
How do you-
Well, if you're keeping some of them, then the new ones that you get, are you just storing them or?
But we're keeping them, we're not replacing it, we're not buying one now. We have a schedule of them, but we'll evaluate them and not necessarily replace them if they're still good. But the thing is with servers too, we don't need servers crashing on us and then losing data. So we do try to be very diligent about our technology.
Well,
Okay.
Those are all of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay. Moving on to our briefings presentations. Next item is item 2A. Discuss board and commission's qualifications requirements. Councilmember Jameson asked for this to be put on the agenda. Yes.
I have a question. Item 5A, can we have that moved to the consent agenda?
Item 5A. Councilmember McBurnett has asked if item 5A can be moved to the consent agenda. My opinion on this is, first, if each of us has read the material and understands the material, it's pretty straightforward. It basically says exactly what we went through at our last city council meeting. It's a reiteration of that in specificity. And if everyone has read it and understands it and agrees to it, I don't have a problem moving it to the consent agenda. However, I received an email from a constituent asking some interesting, pertinent questions that I intended to ask those questions during the briefing. Because I think the questions this individual asked were interesting and would be good information for everyone concerned. So it's kind of a, I don't know.
Well, ask them.
Okay, first of all, we have to, is everyone, are we agreeable to moving this item to the consent agenda? If we are, I'll ask the question, get these questions out of the way now.
Well, I guess it depends on the answer, your question and the answer.
Well, the questions are, okay, are we restricted to certain weeks or weeks, and what about bulky furniture like mattresses, appliances, and the like? Now, my understanding of what's happening is that schedule that we have showing the 4 regions in the city, those 4 regions go away because we're going to twice a week, correct?
That's correct.
Twice a
Twice
month.
a month.
Yeah,
Twice a
every
month.
other week.
The
Every
city
other
will
week.
essentially become 2 areas, region A, Zone A, north of Wheatland, Zone B, south of Wheatland.
So we're going to republish.
Republish
That's
the
gonna be
calendar
republished.
so that it will be
Okay.
essentially every other week pickup.
Okay.
Bulk, 10 cubic yards of bulk and brush is
Unbundled.
Is unbundled brush.
Twice a
And
month.
bulk includes mattresses, everything else is all part of furniture, is all part of bulk, limited to 10 cubic yards.
Okay, so brush and limbs pickup included with the boom truck?
Correct.
Correct.
So would that include a mattress and what else did you say?
Furniture.
Anything.
Appliances, furniture,
Anything
hot water
construction.
heaters, anything that'll fit within the 10 cubic yard.
Except for
Correct.
construction materials.
Right.
Which we never.
She said that they won't even pick up a garden hose or a mop if it's sitting next to a garbage bag. I think that's gonna be,
That's
gonna
a different
change.
issue.
That's-
That would be just to call us, because that would be, failure to pick up what they're supposed to pick up.
okay, yeah, because they picked up my garden hoses. So anyway, I felt this was a good email for us to receive, and I want to ask those questions. Those questions have been answered. We're in public. I think we're good. If we're all good, we can move item 5A to consent.
Do you think there's anything else that needs to be
No,
explored?
I think if that's the case, then 5B goes right along with that. I'm not sure why 5B would be different.
Correct. Yeah, the fee schedule's in detail, and it goes, 5A and 5B are married together. One follows the other. So if we're good with 5A going to consent, we're good with 5B going to consent. All right, so we are agreed 5A and 5B are going to go.
When you're in the big room, please read that the council, that you're moving 5A and 5B to consent unless there's an objection from council. Hearing none, they'll be considered within the consent agenda.
Okay,
And then Kristen would read the captions for 5A, 5B as well.
right, okay. And so if I forget, use your left elbow, please. Or ungently, whatever. Okay, so, Mr. McBurnett, thank you for that. All right, so Councilmember Jamison.
Well, I think that, in fact, thinking about some of the other items that are on this briefing session, this probably affects a lot of them. Because you can see in some of these committees that they're not spread out throughout the city, and that we should we should have attempted to do that. And there was in fact a resolution that was passed saying it didn't matter. It does matter. And what started it for me was the park board, and on the park board, there was not a person from District 5. And that is where preponderance of the money, or at least a large portion of it, and the bond money was coming from. And when we were meeting and talking about it, nobody was from 5. And it was like, so going backward, then found out that there was a resolution that was passed that said that it didn't matter, and it does matter. That's how we got single-member districts. Is a lawsuit was filed because people didn't feel like they were being represented in every area of the city, and at one time, all of the city council and all of the school board were in District 1, neighbors. And so now we're spread out throughout the city. And I think we should make an effort to try to have at least one person from each district on a committee.
So how do you want that effort to be exercised? Because
Well,
what I'm thinking is we advertise for members to volunteer for boards and commissions.
Did you read the resolution?
If no one from a particular district volunteers to be on a board or commission, how is the execution of that effort?
Well, you can
going to
get,
be
for
done?
one thing, you can get the city council member to call people that they know in the district to see if they would be willing to serve.
So it's not technically an appointment.
No.
It's a reach out and touch and see if you can find
Yeah, if you can
someone.
find somebody that will run in that district. But the first thing that has to be dealt with, where did Bob go? Huh?
He had to leave for,
Oh, he's gone?
but he has another attorney coming in for the meeting, so I guess they're not here.
I think she's actually here. I think he's back.
Because we have to, they passed an ordinance saying that wasn't necessary. And I think that we need to rescind it. Change it, send it back and say yes, that it is necessary that we put.
What language do you want in that? Did
Well,
did
where
every
is
district
it?
have at least one member on every board and commission?
Yeah,
But it would not be an appointment.
not necessarily.
I think that.
I think we have a board that is.
That's key language that we desire.
Well, we
to-
do have a board that is an appointment, and that's the TIF board. We do appoint.
Exactly, yeah, those have very
So-
specific parameters, but for those boards and commissions where we advertise for volunteers to serve, and if there are no volunteers from all 5 districts, then the council would make an effort to find someone to serve, and the language has to be that it's not an appointment.
Well, that's why I'm.
No, we don't need him for that, I mean, if that's what.
Well, you do, because I don't know what the legalese is, how you have to say that. Because I don't think that it's an appointment necessarily just because you reach out.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying, and so as long as we have language says that an effort will be made to find an individual from a particular district that is not represented from the volunteers that do volunteer, and if no one can be found, then the commission continues without an individual from that particular district.
Yeah.
Yeah, you missed a whole bunch in about a minute and a half, but it's okay.
Give me, Monty gave me the short version of my presentation. You get the short version of the
Cliff notes.
Yeah, we're good.
We have a resolution going back to what, 2015? And we have some boards and commissions, that resolution said that we don't have to have on volunteer boards and commissions a representative from every district. Councilmember Jameson would like to have language that says that we should have, but it shouldn't be an appointment, and it's not mandatory, but every effort would be expended to have a representative from every district.
I'll bring you back another resolution to amend that one next meeting.
I'm sorry?
I'll bring back a resolution to do exactly what you want at your next meeting.
But without an appointment.
Suppose, what happens in a case where you have boards with more than seven members, like, for example, the library board and zoning board of adjustment, and multicultural, and KDB.
Well, isn't that wonderful? There will be more than one, obviously, from one district, if there are.
You're gonna have multiple members from,
Well, if there's 7, let's see, there's 5 districts, 1 at large, so that's 6.
that's it.
So there's going to be. But you can look here and see, just glancing, I can see that the library board doesn't have anybody from 2. And they have 4 people from 1.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, but it's not representative of the city, and you're not having the voice of every district involved. And that's what I was saying when I
The fact that
looked
these are
at.
volunteers that want to serve, the fact is, if they don't want to volunteer to serve on that particular board, where does that leave us in terms of saying you must?
There
we
is
shouldn't.
anything about saying you must. Once again, you can reach out to your district and say, we need somebody from the district.
So the language that the city council would
May-
desire to have.
Well, what you do is if it says that members from each district and members at large may nominate for each position, which is permissive. You as a representative may not want to submit someone for that board.
So
Just,
if
it
you
makes
can't-
it makes it permissive instead of mandatory, and then I would add the language in there that the council shall strive to appoint a representative on each board from each district. I mean, I think it's all you can do unless it just says that each district shall have one member, at least one member on every board. Which, if that's what y'all want, I'll write.
One of the offshoots, though, of one of the results of making that particular change was that as a result of making that change, we actually had more people apply than were slotted positions in that board that were available on the boards. There were almost 100 people responded.
I don't think that you can say that that was because it didn't matter if you were, because before people didn't go, oh, I'm not going to because I'm from this district and they won't need me. You're saying that because they opened it up and you weren't asking for there to be at least one member of every district, that all of a sudden everybody came in to be on boards. I don't think that you can say that those two are synonymous. They don't have anything to do with each other.
No, I would say that, and that's what
How?
happened.
Most people don't even, a lot of the people don't even know what district they live in. And that's the other thing that we've got, it's on the form and it's gonna have to be filled out. Probably Kristen or whoever takes those forms is gonna have to say, you know, what district do you live in?
It's my understanding that they apply, we don't nominate,
That is
Except for
correct.
the TIF.
That is correct.
except for the TIF.
Except
And
for the
there's
TIF.
language in the TIF that requires things to be done a certain way in the article. In the bylaws.
Right.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is still the same application process, but are you saying then the requirement is it should strive to have at least one
Yeah.
member from each district, or shall? Is it should or shall?
I think shall, because the deal is that the last time, some of it wasn't even filled out. We didn't even know what district unless you knew the street. We didn't even know what district it
But
was.
if you make it shall, that makes it mandatory. That
Right.
makes
Then you
reaching
have
out to
that-
somebody.
you
That
have
becomes
Okay,
the point.
I want someone from District 5 on the park board. And let's look at it.
But what you gotta be careful of is that since it's an application process, not a nomination process.
Right.
Even if I'll just pick on myself, if someone from my hometown applied for it, I doubt whether they could read and whether they could be on the library board. So, I may not, because they apply, doesn't mean I as the representative would want that individual representing my district.
And excuse me, but what does that have to, oh, well, that doesn't mean that right now they're not on there that can't read and write.
I know, but what if you put shall and they're the only applicant from that district, then you've kind of put yourself in the box that you've got to
Go back
appoint that
out
person.
and ask people to apply because we need more applicants. We've done it before. We've asked for them.
But that's
And
why
that
I
goes back
said
to you were saying, putting the onus on that district council member to go out and recruit more people.
Yeah. ask for them. But looking here at the board reviews, or the park board, there are, I didn't even look at it, 3 from 2, 1 from 3, 2 from 1, and a 4.
I don't think it ought to be a shall. It ought to be, the language should be that we desire to have.
Strive.
We strive to have representation from all districts, and if in the case that the volunteers do not represent all districts, and some effort will be made by the council member to find someone to recruit, the word recruit, something like that.
Okay, I'll do my best. You can always tweak it down.
My concern is that I do not want to seem as if we are officially setting preferences, because if we set preferences in this case, where does it end?
Oh, please. I think some of the things that are here that we're discussing right now, citizen satisfaction survey, if in fact there were members from each district on all these boards, then some of the items and the issues that come up would have been addressed by everyone from every district. When it's not, if the preponderance of people on here are like from 1, then there are districts that aren't being asked, or 4, or whatever district it is, and there are boards are balanced differently. Then you're talking, and you're talking about you want to have parties for the city. Well, there ought to be input from all areas. And we're not getting it, and saying they are volunteers, but they don't know that we're going to come back here and 5 people from District 1 said they wanted this board. The onus is on us to balance it, to make
And that's
it
the language
balanced.
that Bob will craft for us, we'll take a look at. Now, there were 3 pieces to what you brought forward. This is one of them. One of them was about registered voters.
Right.
And the other was about term limits.
right.
So let's tackle the registered
Okay.
voter thing.
Registered voters.
You have to be a registered voter to serve on a board and commission.
Right now it says you don't.
Why do you have to be a registered voter to vote up to be on a board and commission?
Why would you not be a registered voter and want to participate in
Because we
anything?
have a very, very politically active 16-year-old high school that wants to participate in this city. I want
Where?
that person to be
Where are
elected.
they?
We
have
have
never-
one. What was her name?
It's Cruz.
We have one.
And so, you think 16 is old enough to be on
The right to
committee?
be.
I didn't, that was an example.
Okay.
Of
Well,
the-
I don't think it is. I'm sorry, you're not paying taxes.
No, but those
No, you
parents are
use
paying
that.
tax- those
No,
parents
but
are
the
paying
parents aren't
taxes,
on
and
the
that's a
committee.
resident of our city.
Maybe
A
they don't even
politi-
agree with their
A politically
16-year-old.
astute teenager going to high school
But then,
I think,
that volunteers to be on a board and commission ought to be allowed to serve.
why don't we put it on the citizen survey then? Do you want your citizens who's serving on committees to be registered voters?
All right, so put it on there, I don't care.
That's-
But I'm telling
I
you,
think
my
you
opinion
should.
is if I got a politically active, astute, intelligent, brilliant teenager.
Oh, right,
that
like all
wants
your
to
adults
serve-
are.
That wants to serve, I'm gonna allow that person to do it.
All the adults that you interview are not brilliant. That's what you're saying. I think being a registered voter is minimum.
I think, I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying, you know, put in our mission statement, we're trying to build a vibrant, inclusive community, and if you discard the voter, someone that doesn't want to vote or take
Doesn't
advantage of their
want to
right, that's their
There's
right.
people who have religious beliefs they don't vote.
You don't have to vote to be a registered voter.
They don't, they're not gonna register because of their religion. There's people,
But
there's.
the bottom
I don't know what
line
you're
is,
talking about.
the bottom line is, it is up to this council to select individuals from those that apply.
And I think.
And if
somebody
someone
that's young-
applies
I think
and we
we ought to
think
have
they're
more
okay, we
young
ought to do it.
students on our boards and stuff. I think we ought to be asking younger people.
So do I.
What we want, because they're the ones that are gonna be living in the decisions that we.
I agree.
I think the people that have to
We're
pay for what we do
setting
should be the ones on the boards.
So my personal opinion is, we do not have to be a registered voter to serve on a board of commission. It's up to this council in those interviews to decide if someone is not a registered voter, whether to put them on a council or not.
Why don't we put it on the citizen survey? If citizens think it's fine to put people that aren't registered on the committees, then fine.
And Mayor, I guess I'd like to say is that, you know, we go through a process in which we ask people to apply. We also interview these people, and really what I want on the boards and commissions are the ones that I think will be the best ones. And it goes back to a little bit of Hager's point, is that, you know, the library board, you know, there's not somebody from my district, but I helped get a lot of people on the library board. And those people were ones that I think could make it a strong board. It doesn't mean that, I mean, we still have opportunity. Is it April is when we're,
Around April, we'll start soliciting.
so we have
applications.
opportunities to get people in our districts.
Do you have a problem
Position.
with asking the citizens if they want registered voters on their committees?
No, I don't have a problem, but I believe that we as
Because,
a
I mean, to
council
me,
have
that's
have
what we ought to be
enough
doing. I
intelligence
don't have a
to
problem
make
if
the
citizens
decision with us,
say,
yeah.
if citizens say that that's fine with them, then I don't have a problem.
All right, then that particular one's held in advance, we'll put it on a survey, if we do a survey. Term limits.
I had people calling me and saying they couldn't get on boards because they felt like it was that we did not respect term limits. And so there were people on boards that stayed there forever.
There's no term limits on those boards?
Yeah, there is. We just
There's term
don't
limits.
enforce it.
Is
Every
it-
year.
But
We
is
Every
it,
year new
enforce it.
council comes in.
is
Every
it,
year new council, they serve at will. I'm sorry to interrupt. If a new council comes in and we go through the process and they have a better person, then they need to convince 3 other council members that, hey, I've got a good person. I mean, you convinced all these other people to get you to vote for them, to get you in the seat in the first place.
Monty, did
So
you
why
even
is it so
know?
hard to talk to 3 other people, 3 other council
I thought
members?
we
Say,
had
oh,
term
this is the
limits. I
best
thought there
person.
were term limits.
There you go, there's your new council person. He thought we had term limits and that they were enforced.
No, I thought they weren't. I didn't think they weren't.
And that's your new council. No,
They're not enforced?
no.
That's true.
No, there are no term limits.
we do
There are-
not
We did
have.
have term limits.
Okay.
Now, if they went out, they went
I'm
out.
just clarifying
We
what-
did have term limits.
When people serve for a certain period of time.
That's a term
And then,
limit.
and
No,
then it-
as
and the
Councilman Harvey
application
said, it's up
process.
to the council each year when you have appointments. Board and commission members serve at the pleasure and will of the council. You can remove a board member at any time for any reason.
Yeah, but it's hard to do. I agree. I think we should have term limits.
But again,
It's hard to remove them. When we were going through that process, I saw that. It's hard, like you don't want to remove, we didn't want to remove people.
They stay on
So
forever.
I agree with that.
Now, what term limits do you feel are justified?
I don't know, I mean, something reasonable, I mean, I don't know what that would be, but I just think, I saw it when we did the work here, if there was somebody that was pretty good, it was like they were gonna automatically get back on there, and I think we ought to have term limits in everything, especially Congress, but, you know, I mean, but, I think we ought to, you know,
Do they?
I don't know what, we have term limits, so.
No, we don't.
No, we
No, we
don't.
don't.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
That's why.
Our
None of
citizens-
our, we don't have any
No,
term
the
limits.
city does not have
You can
term
run for
limits.
the rest of your life.
Your
I
citizens
think we
determine
should-
your term
I think
limit,
we
as
should have
Patrick
term
was saying.
Well, citizens decide, well, no, he's a new council person, that just changes everything he said. He wasn't aware of it. We didn't make it an obvious thing when it was going on. We did not.
It's in the city charter. We are supposed to read the city charter as new council members, so we become familiar with how the city operates.
No, wait a minute, that's not what I said. We're talking about that he thought that we had term limits for committees.
No, he was talking about himself.
No, I
No,
thought we
he
did on
talked about
committees. I thought there
committees,
were
Barry.
term limits on these, I did,
On committees.
yeah.
No, we have no term limits on committees.
Yeah, still a
But
term.
we
There's
did
still a term.
until 2015.
But that resolution was only effective to the KDB, if I recall correctly.
We can remove it, but there's not a term limit.
What about other board members that continue to serve past their term limits?
But we don't, okay, Kristen, or Mr. Hugman, in all the paperwork that establishes every board and commission that we have, aside from the TIF, is it codified in black and white that there are term limits for every single board and commission we have? Are we
They changed
consistent or
it with
inconsistent?
this resolution ordinance in 2015.
That resolution, as I read it, applied only to KDB.
Well, we're not enforcing it if you think it's only applying to KDB.
There are no resolutions, none of the boards have term limits. The only board that has term limit is the Civil Service Board, and that is by state law. There are limits on how long a civil service member can serve, and none of the other boards or commissions have term limits. What was in place before that resolution, I don't know.
We had term limits. There were 2 terms.
I don't know, we did not go back to look to see what was changed or what was.
What it did was it allowed for, I mean, there's some boards that you have to do everything to get someone to serve on, like the sign board, it's not a favorite. But there are some that people want on, and you don't just keep making the board bigger.
We have various opinions around the table, so what this means is Mr. Hager is going to draft up something for us to vote on in city council, and we're gonna approve or disapprove term limits.
I think we ought to do it on the council too,
You can't do, that's charter.
so let's.
That's
let's
people,
do-
that's the
let's
people.
look at it.
Well,
That has to
person
go
can
to the
make the
table.
argument, if they can do it,
Yeah.
y'all that making the decision can do
And you
it.
can't-
That's fair.
And you
What
can't
are you
do
talking-
one
we lead by
paragraph in the
example.
charter, you
So
gotta
what are
do
you
the
talking
entire
about that
charter.
you're
It's
saying
reviewed by
council
the
puts,
city.
term
It's
limits
not
for
reviewed
council
by
too?
us.
No, you put it in the charter, it's in the charter. We can take it to the people to vote for.
Mr. Hager, do you know what we want now?
You want to do away with all the boards and commissions? Well,
We need language on term limits to come before the city council to take a vote on.
I know
For
term
or
limits
against term limits on boards and commissions.
Permissive, the striving to appoint on each and every board, a member from each and every
To
district,
the exclusion of the TIF.
except for the TIF. That resolution wouldn't apply to the TIF because the TIF's governed by its bylaws.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we've covered all 3 pieces of that. So, let's see, second item, citizen satisfaction survey. Item 2B.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and guests. Sorry, Mayor. Sneak up on you there. Exciting discussion here, and I'm glad to see we're already talking about surveys, because that's why I'm here. Councilmember Cooks had requested that we put this item on our briefing session, and that's why I'm here tonight to give you kind of a 10,000-foot overview of what a citizen satisfaction survey is. Citizen satisfaction surveys are used to inform decision-making. They help identify the mix of programs and services to best meet our residents' expectations. The last satisfaction survey that was conducted by the city of Duncanville.
Time out. You've officially replaced Bob.
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Julie Dosher, Bob's office, Bob with long hair.
Right. So Julie is now in as a city attorney
Yes, sir.
in Bob's stead. I'm sorry.
No.
I just wanted to make that official. Okay.
And we do have that report here for you tonight from 2011. It was conducted by the National Citizen Survey. I went ahead and flagged at the very back the questionnaire that just so you could get an idea of some of the questions that would be on the citizen survey, or might be on the citizen survey, I should say. And I apologize, I don't have multiple copies, so I have to just pass that around. Professional survey companies provide well-researched, statistically valid data. They're experts in wording the questions that are on those surveys, and they serve as an indicator for organizational performance and a measure on the impact of the decisions being made day to day. Regarding goals and objectives, the survey would be uniquely designed for Duncanville to gather resident opinions about city services. We would be looking to objectively quantify the satisfaction level of existing programs and services to further understand the perceptions of those who live here. It would give us the opportunity to gather citizen input on various topics like city planning or specific policy questions like you're discussing tonight. We could also gather feedback on our performance as an organization, and that would help us identify priorities for use in project planning and budgeting, as well as our work plan that we reproduce annually. Best practices for a survey is either annual or biannually, so that you set a benchmark and you can gauge how you're doing or the things that you need to be working on. Methodology. Residents would be selected at random from the utility account database, and the number of participants selected would be even across all 5 districts. You're looking for a 3 to 5% response rate, and for Duncanville, that would mean that we would invite 17,500 participants to participate in the survey, and that would yield approximately 500 to 850 anticipated responses. Now, that's a 5% response rate, and that's what you're looking for. Obviously, we can scale that back. If you targeted 12,000 participants, you're looking at approximately 3% response rate. So those numbers vary depending on cost and how many people you're wanting to target. The survey would be online based in both English and Spanish, which would make it easy for people to take from their computer or their mobile device. And to notify the participants that they've been selected, we would direct mail them a postcard with a survey link and a unique identifier passcode that they would enter in. And that helps us cover the entire city. It's a randomly selected group of participants. So considerations, and this is very preliminary data we're presenting tonight. A cost estimate is approximately $20,000 based on the information I provided to you. A timeline, the survey prep would take about a month. The survey would remain open for 4 to 6 weeks. It would take 2 to 3 weeks for data tabulation, analysis, and reporting. And as a product of this survey, council would get a formal professional report as well as a presentation in the council chambers. Timing-wise, we could kick this project off as early as 2020, summer of 2020.
I presume there would be X number of town halls associated with this, with whoever would put that together?
Well, it's an online survey. So really all we would do is mail them a postcard. We could mail follow-up letters.
But I mean, we have no input from citizens in terms of what they'd like to see on the survey.
No, because you're looking at a random selection of citizens.
You're talking about random selection.
You wouldn't take your, you mentioned town hall, were you thinking the town hall goes away?
No.
Okay, good.
No. I'm thinking that
The
you
questions
could have a
itself.
couple of town halls saying, like, what would you like to have on the citizen survey?
Right now, we're capturing, right now, citizens really call in, when citizens call in and can give us complaints already, and we record those complaints. So it's various ways the organization can come up with those questions.
Right. What would probably be more likely is that you as the council would have input to the consultant on what kind of areas you want to get data on.
Yeah.
But it's very important that it be third party that develops it. It's very important that the survey be reproducible. So as April said, you want to do this either every year or every other year. So your survey needs to be very much consistent over that time, or else the data becomes meaningless. You can't compare to your original benchmark data to say you're making progress or you're not making progress. You can change it a little bit, but the core of it, the bulk of it needs to be the same. So you want the same kind of questions, the same kind of areas that you're asking questions in. That would be something that, the council, I would see is providing that input. These are the things that are important to us that we want to know about. The policy questions, the benchmark, the data, service level type questions.
So I don't want to throw this off, but I do want to add, one of the things, of course, I've heard this from citizens, but also heard on the second part, citizens asking if they could do it versus a company could do it. Can you share the differences of the reason we would have a company do it versus citizens do it? Just share the differences.
Yeah, there's a science to writing survey questions. They're easily skewed. You know about the science?
Oh, that's exactly, I think, why they wanted to write them, is that they felt like they were being skewed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Go ahead and finish.
the sentence is valid enough. There's a science to writing the questions, and those that don't have the science and the background and the knowledge to do so aren't qualified to write a question.
Yeah, and you're really
That's
looking for that
sample.
random
I
sampling.
don't agree with you.
We've got a lot of folks engaged at City Hall, a lot of people out here tonight, and there's a lot of people at home who really don't know much about what's going on at City Hall. So you want to kind of spread out your efforts and capture everyone, and that random sampling is really effective for that.
Yeah, the other reason I brought it, I'm very familiar with surveys and live and die by them in my regular work. So very familiar with them and how they really work. So I thought it would be good to have something for our city to help communicate outside of town halls as well.
What about the cost? Would
I'm really
We
surprised.
don't have it in the budget.
We don't, I agree. And I'm really actually surprised at the cost. It is lower than I even expected, but I know it still goes with a budget item, but it is lower than I really expected.
Well, the bottom, if we want to do this, can we find that $20,000 to $30,000 somewhere?
We take it out of the fund reserve.
So it's possible.
I just wonder if we don't want to take some questions from citizens as to what they're,
I think in combination of that, perhaps we hear from citizens on the questions they would like to add, and let the company decide whether those questions is formatted correctly to go into a survey. So now you're hearing from both. You're hearing
Well, they can format it correctly.
citizens' feedback, and you have a third-party company who will take that information, massage it, make it user-friendly for all.
I think what you find out when a company comes in to do that kind of research, they don't ask what kind of questions. It's like, what are your concerns about the city?
That's correct.
And then they formulate the question based on what the citizen has a concern about.
Right, so it's a combination of.
That's why I asked about the town halls.
Okay.
I thought it'd be good to have at least one town hall or a couple to get some feedback for the professionals to put it together.
We haven't talked to any companies yet either, so I mean, that would be something we could talk with them about. What is their process for getting input on developing the survey, and what are some of the best practices that they would recommend? Yeah.
So we'd like staff to move forward, taking a look at this.
So I think it's good. I think it's good.
Okay.
I think it's cheap. I mean, it's a cheap way to find out. I mean, that's what you gotta ask. I mean, it doesn't matter what we think really. What matters is what they think.
And we struggle right now with communication, and so that'll help us with communication to our citizens.
Okay, all right, good.
Thank you.
All right, item 2C, and we've got like 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. And if we can't get through this, we're going to come back.
Okay.
So what's your prognosis on
I don't think we can do it in 7 minutes.
you think you can do it in 7
I
minutes?
don't. think we can.
Well, it has to be less than 7 minutes because we need to take a break before we get out there at 7.
I don't think we can.
They don't rush it.
Okay. We'll go back.
All right, let's recess, or what are we doing here? We're recessing our briefing session. And we're going to convene city council at 7 o'clock. And then at the end of city council, we're going to reconvene the briefing session to talk about item 2C.
6:54.
What do we got?
6:54.
6:54. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming tonight. We are convening the Duncanville City Council for December 3rd, 2019, and timestamp is 7:05. The individual who was supposed to be doing our invocation, I do not see. Manuel Lara, I know him, I do not see him. Mr. Harvey, would you please give us the invocation? Please rise.
Will you join with me in prayer? Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we pause at this moment just to say thank you for life, health, and strength. Most of all, for the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ. We're thankful for this opportunity that you have given us to represent this community as public servants. We pray, dear God, that you would give us the mind of Christ, that we might be sensitive and subject to you in all things, that we would be committed to accomplishing your will and your desire, your heart's desire on behalf of this community. Lead, guide, and direct us as we go through the deliberations this evening, that everything might be done to your glory and honor. Thank you for the people that are assembled here and those who are watching by media. We pray to God that you would continue to lead and guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, item 1A is the mayor's report. First thing I'd like to say is I want to thank you, our citizens, for permitting me and I think 3 others to go to the National League of Cities annual conference in the city of San Antonio. What was it, 2 weeks ago now, I guess. It's the National League of Cities is a very powerful organization representing the many, many cities throughout the United States and their representatives, and it allows us to interface with other elected officials throughout the country, to learn from them, and to get updates on what's going on a national front and how it may affect those of us here in local positions. I was very interested to talk to some other mayors of other cities. Anecdotally, in one seminar I went to, I was sitting next to the mayor of Grand Prairie, Ontario, from Canada. And he says he gets emails all the time. He says, oh, I know where Duncanville is. That's right next to Grand Prairie. I get emails all the time for Grand Prairie, Texas. Very interesting. And he says, how much do you get paid? And I said, we don't get paid. We're all volunteers. He says, you don't get paid anything? I said, just reimbursement of expenses on official duties. I said, why, do you get paid? He says, yeah, I get paid 106,000 Canadian dollars a year. I went, okay. So anyway, it was a very informative time for all of us, and I want to thank the citizens for allowing us to take that time to go to a national conference. Also want to remind you all that December 6th is our Christmas parade and tree lighting, and the parade starts at 7 o'clock. And it's going to be a lot of fun, and then we'll have the tree lighting after that at 8 o'clock if we don't have any inclement weather is not forecasted based on what I'm hearing. Temperature is going to drop, but there isn't going to be any inclement weather, so we should be on schedule for doing all that. So we invite everybody out to have a good time. There's going to be some good festivities at the tree lighting, and we hope everybody will come out for that. For city council members, there will be some information coming to you in terms of parking and when to be ready, so we can kick off the parade on time. That concludes my mayor's report. Is there any city council members' reports? Mr. Veracruz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to recognize my church, Trinity Church Fair Meadows at 734 Caven Street here in Duncanville. A week ago Sunday, we partnered with Mint Dentistry to give away 200 meals to families for Thanksgiving Day. So just want to recognize Mint Dentistry who helped us out, and of course our church helping out Duncanville. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Jamison.
I turned it on. That's fine.
Well, I don't. Okay. Mr. Cook, I'm going by what I see.
All right, hello. I just want to thank also and echo the mayor's comments about being able to attend the National League of City. I too also received some great information from other council members and mayors. So thank you for allowing us to attend.
Ms. Jamison.
I too went to the National League of Cities and appreciate the opportunity to do that. And while I was there, I was elected to the Board of Directors for Women in Municipal Government. And
Congratulations.
thank you. So I will continue to try to learn and see. I heard about some different programs. There's different funding that sometimes you can find out through these areas, federal funding and such that can help with different programs that we have in town. We just really appreciate the opportunity to go and learn and to continue to develop and to bring it back to our community. So thanks, and December 6th is a tree lighting, so we're all hoping that you'll be there, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. City Manager's report. Okay, moving on to item number 2 of the agenda, item 2A, recognition of Duncanville, Keep Duncanville Beautiful Winter 2019 Curb Appeal Residential Properties. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Manager. It is my honor today to come to you and highlight some of the fine citizens and homes that we have here in Duncanville. Our board members, our Keep Duncanville Beautiful board members, go through the districts quarterly, and they're looking for properties that emulate what we're looking for from all of our citizens and our examples in their district. We vet these with code enforcement as well, just to make sure that all is above board, and we really appreciate these citizens and their efforts. And so at this time, I'm going to read off each one of them that was nominated this time, and then at the conclusion, if you are in the audience, which I do know of at least one winner that is, we would ask that you would come down to the front, and we'll do a photo op and also an exchange of a goodie bag that we provide all of our winners. So I'll start off with District 1. We have Takeshi and Jeannie Takano at 1027 Green Valley Lane. District 2, we have Kimberly Holt, 323 Harmon Street. District 3, we have Carolyn Bartlett at 406 Shorewood Drive. District 4, we have Jerry and Janet Herbold at 1702 Sparta Drive. And in District 5, we have James and Pamela Terry at 1111 Dula Circle. So if any of these are present, I know the District 4 one is present, if they would make their way down, and our board chair, Bobby Cutler-Hill, and board member Alice Arnold, so we can present them with their goodie bag and a photo op, please.
Council, you're all in the background, just letting you know. Smile big, everyone. Thank you.
On behalf of our city council, we thank all the individuals who endeavor to keep their properties in great looking shape and showing how much they care for our city and their individual properties as well. Thank you very much for all that you do. We appreciate that. Going on the agenda to item number 3, which is citizens input. According to pursuant to section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code, any member of the public has the opportunity to address the city council concerning any matter of public business or any posted agenda item. The act prohibits the city council from deliberating any issues not on the public agenda, and such non-agenda issues may be referred to city staff for research and any future actions. Anybody that wishes to speak needs to fill out a card and submit that to the city secretary, which has been done. And I will call you forward, and please state your name and address, and you are limited to 2 minutes in your discussions. The first card that I have is Tai Fang Lu. Please state your name and address, and 2 minutes, please.
Okay, 434 Blue Ridge Drive, Duncanville, and please, okay, Mayor, City Council member, City Manager, and the Attorney. Okay, please check 11005399 that happened in 2011 police report. Okay, and 2019 263020. This is most recent event number. So you guys need to involve to look from the police department, because the goal for these two events was reaching the VIP, such as manager or the human resource director, to know, as the Mr. Harvey player saying, you guys are public servant, should be for the people, by the people, and of people, provide the service instead of abusing power behind closed doors, how they function. That shows the integrity. So relationship should be based on respect, cooperation, and apology. Don't stay behind doors saying, I did this out of charity. I thought it's brutality, okay? Because you guys get paid under taxpayers' dollars, not to abuse power, should function with integrity. And October 16, last year's videotape was surveillance camera malfunction, not until almost Thanksgiving made the function, and Victoria in the Cedar Hill Library even lent me the headphone to see what I say during those 2 minutes. I was the first one speak after me. Thank you.
Next card I have is Dario Crusetto. And again, please state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, council member. My name is Dario Crusetto. I live in 900 Hideaway Place in DeSoto, Texas. Today I had a meeting lasting more than 2 hours with the president, Tim Perry, and director Mary Cam of the Duncanville Museum of International Culture. This gave me an opportunity to explain to them, and also to you and the citizens of Duncanville, that my action of distributing flyers and showing large signs does not have the objective to embarrass and to attack others, but on the contrary, to defend citizens of Duncanville from being deceived from the new organizer of the sister city in Monastirolo, and to protect your children, grandchildren, and future generation from examples of behaviors which are not the value of the founding fathers of the Constitution of the United States and of Italy, and are not behavior that should be taught in the school or in the public administration. You are invited to analyze the irrefutable facts and behavior described in the flyer and express with a vote what you consider, what your conscience consider right or wrong, civil or uncivil, respectful or disrespectful for future generation, and everyone should condemn those who suppress freedom and mutual respect with mobbing, bullying, intimidation, and even death threat. To protect myself from these threats, when displaying the large sign and distributing the flyer here and in Italy, I will be wearing a body camera like the policemen, and I will inform them and thank them for serving and protecting us. Today, I was asked by Tim and Mary Fire, what am I expecting by distributing this flyer and this information? My answer was that I care to defend people deceived from false advertisement, and I care about giving an example of education based on responsible, honest behavior to the future generation, and I hope that those who misbehave will reflect and convert themselves as Jean Valjean did, taking example from a priest in the Les Miserables de Victor Hugo. Thank you.
Thank you. Last card I have is John Rakestraw. Please state your name and address.
Hello, my name is John Rakestraw. I live at 502 Villa Creek Drive in Duncanville. And I'm here tonight to talk briefly about the proposed citizen satisfaction survey. The survey, I think, is a really, really good idea and much needed in the city. The last one was conducted in 2011. In in August of this year, we did just an informal one-week poll among the citizens that responded to an online survey that we just threw out through a little social network called Neighborhood. And 93% of the folks who responded, of the 153, said that yes, we should have a citizen satisfaction survey. So that is where I am now pushing that along, and hopefully you all have had the opportunity to see the briefing that was conducted by April a little while ago today. And I think it's really good, and that's definitely the right track. The one big difference I have is that I believe that the citizens need more input. I know that they can't, and we can't, create the survey. I'm not proposing that at all. It has to be done by a professional survey company, in my opinion. But the citizens need input, and the steering of that input needs to be done, in my opinion, by a committee. And that committee should report, and this is the point, to City Council and be appointed by City Council and not by the city manager. And it should be based upon input that you all want. Like, for example, I need input from the police department. I need input from Public Works and, you know, the different various departments within the city. So those questions and concerns would be able to bubble up and come to you in the form of a report, much like April was showing you, but the methodology should be developed by the people, and it should be developed by the survey company. So that's really the point. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're moving on to our consent agenda. This is item number 4 on the agenda. And for information, during our briefing session, items 5A and 5B under items for individual consideration have been moved to the consent agenda. Before doing that, just want to make sure that we go on record that these two items, items 5A and 5B, that were on individual consideration regarding or pertain to the Republic trash contract. And basically what's happening is that based on City Council's deliberation and discussion last week and direction to city staff, that the Republic contract is being amended to go back to what we used to have. In terms of, we're going to have trash pickup twice a week. We're going to have recycling pickup once a week, and twice a month we're going to have bulk pickup, and this is 10 cubic yards unbundled, and that's going to be twice a month. And there will be a new sheet coming out that's going to define our city in 2 different regions instead of 4 regions that we had before. It's going to be 2 different regions, and that'll be twice a month now for 10 cubic yards of pickup for bulk and brush. So that's the essence of what's in item 5A and 5B, and those are going to consent items. So City Secretary, if you read the consent agenda, please.
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the November 17th City Council regular meeting. Item 4B, consider a resolution authorizing award of bid number 20-002 water utility improvements along Lakeside Drive from Chatfield Road to Steiger Drive to Munis Construction, Inc. through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure amount of $291,855. 4C, consider a resolution authorizing the purchase of personal hardware and related computer hardware and related equipment from Dell USA through the Texas Department of Information Resources contract in the estimated amount of $150,000. Item 5A, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute an amendment to the Municipal Materials Management Agreement with Republic Services of Texas to provide for Option 1 bulk and brush services, which consist of collections up to 10 cubic yards of residential bulk and brush twice per month from each residential household. 5B, consider an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019-2020 master fee utility schedule, which is attached hereto and incorporated as Exhibit A.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Please vote. Consent agenda items are passed. Thank you. Moving to, moving to items for individual consideration. We're now on item 5C. Consider a resolution approving the terms and conditions of standard form of agreement, RFQ number 19-026, with Core Construction Services of Texas, Inc. for construction manager at risk services for Fire Station number 1, to provide construction management for the pre-construction phase at $20,000 and construction phase services in the amount of 4% of the cost of the work. Mr. Ramey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, this is for the contract for the construction manager at risk for Core Construction. Again, the key pieces tonight are the establishment of the pre-construction phase fee of $20,000 and the construction phase services fee of 4% of the cost of the work, or we would call the guaranteed maximum price. Just a little bit of background. Again, this is a bond project, so the trigger for this initiative was the November 18th election where the bond was approved. In July 2019, city staff interviewed 3 construction manager at risk firms, and Core Construction was selected as the most qualified. And then between then and now, we negotiated the terms of the contract and made sure that we went by the city attorney reviewed it. One of the questions again is why construction manager at risk. The first thing is it allowed us to choose the most qualified general contractor, the person who's going to perform the work and manage the project ahead of time based on best value, based on most qualified, and independent of the construction costs. We work together, as we'll talk about later, on the construction costs as a collaboration. It allows us to review all the subcontractor proposals for best value instead of lowest cost. So again, as we go through the contract and we are bidding out all the features of work, it allows us to evaluate all the proposals from the subcontractors. So again, that we can focus on best value and lowest cost, or versus lowest cost. It also allows us to collaborate on meeting small business goals. So we're able to work together and parcel up different features of work and supporting activities in order to help be inclusive of the small business enterprises. It controls our costs because we will be establishing the guaranteed maximum price for the work. So we will be working hand in hand with the architect all the way through the process so that when the design is done, we're all in agreement that the price of the job meets our budget. And because the CMAR contractor is with us from the beginning, it minimizes the change orders that we would have. Typically, in other procurement strategies with like a design bid build, usually get change ordered. You experience lots of change orders which affect the cost. And finally, the CMAR will serve as our owner's rep for the city, and they're the ones that carry the burden for project management and quality control. Vertical construction is typically not something that we in the city manage day-to-day basis. That we're more focused on the horizontal construction of streets and below. A little bit about Core Construction. We have some folks here tonight that we can bring up later for you to meet. Gary Frazier, the president of Core Construction, Jeff Jackson, the project executive, and J.R. Sainez, who will be the project manager. And again, we'll be working with these gentlemen for the next 3 years as we get this project designed and built. Core Construction was established in 1937. They're in Frisco, Texas. They've constructed 14 fire stations in Texas and 45 nationwide. As you see there, they're working in multiple cities in the Metroplex. They've had positive reference checks, and they have a good track record of meeting the small business goals, which I know is one of the council goals as well. The contract terms, again, for council approval tonight would be the pre-construction fee of $20,000, and that pays for all their support in helping select the designer of record, the architecture firm, as well as all the meetings with the design and price estimating and getting us from, now all the way through the agreed upon guaranteed maximum price settlement. And then, of course, the construction fee of 4% of the guaranteed maximum price. Now, I was a federal program manager, project manager for many years, and 4% is the fair and reasonable price that I would expected to see for any of my jobs of this size of scope. So I think this is definitely industry standard and what I've seen in the past with my other vertical construction projects. We will be coming back to you in April 2021 approximately, and that's when we will be setting the guaranteed maximum price for Fire Station 1, and that's when the actual amount of the CMAR construction fee will be selected. So again, in the packet that you saw was the full contract, and then there is an amendment where we actually set the GMP, and that would be what we would be coming back to you in approximately April 2021. Again, the next steps, this month we'll be reviewing the architect statements of qualification. In fact, their qualifications are due to us this Friday, and then we will start reviewing them. It's based on how many we get. In January, we'll present the architect interviews. So again, this is a two-phase review. We'll be looking at their statements of qualifications first, narrowing down the field, and then we'll be bringing them back in to determine who we choose to be our architect. In February 2020, again, we anticipate bringing the architect's contract to council for your approval, and then you'll see our estimated timeline for the design and the construction. Typically, I'm planning on a 1-year design period of performance and about 2 years to build this project. And my recommendation is that you approve the contract, subject to your questions.
Could you go back to slide 30, please?
Yes, sir.
Just trying to get an understanding of the processes, or not processes, the interaction between your shop and the CMAR and the general contractors. This first bullet says it allows the city to choose the most qualified general contractor, independent construction costs. Reading the background that was in our package, it appeared to me that the CMAR does most of that work in terms of selection. But
the CMAR is the general contractor for this job. They would be our prime.
So they act in that in both capacities.
That's correct. So we hire them as the best, as our CMAR, and then together we hire the subs.
Okay, so then a little bit of amplification. How much actual interaction is there between your shop, our engineer, let's say, and everybody else along with the CMAR?
It would be very, be continuous from basically next week when we start interviewing or reviewing the architect statements of qualifications, all the way through the entire design process as we reach all the different milestones, from the programming aspect, from all the different levels of design. They'll be running parallel cost estimates, make sure that we're staying on budget, making sure that our expectations are in alignment with our budget, all the way through the set of establishing the guaranteed maximum price. And then as we move into construction, we'll be interacting with them usually on a weekly basis during product progress meetings, especially in the beginning with submittal reviews, with selection of subcontractors that will be doing all the features of work.
Okay, reading the packet, it was clear to me that one of the biggest advantages with the CMAR is that it minimizes changes to the contract.
Oh, yes.
Under what circumstances are those changes actually permitted? Rather than just us saying whimsically, we want to change this, we want to change that, but what things are permitted?
Typically, and again, in my experience, I've done a lot of vertical construction on the federal side. So typically, in my experience, in a design bid build project, what gets you are design busts, as well as existing site condition change orders, which usually what costs a lot of money. And these are items that with a CMAR and walking the whole way process, we anticipate no misunderstanding on the expectations of the design or the associated specifications. And we also anticipate no problems with the site because they'll be part of the project from the beginning. Secondly, the thing that typically goes, and this is the part that we control, are what are called user requested changes. And so those are the ones where we set the GMP and we anticipate, we'll just say, polished concrete floors for whatever reason. And that's for that particular price. And then down the road, it's determined that we want something different. And so that would be what's called a user requested change. And that would be something outside of the scope of the original project, but it does add more money. I've seen those as well.
Thank you. Mr. Cooks.
Yeah, would you share again the time of the project and who's, if it's not completed on time, is that goes back to the CMAR or to the general contractor, or they penalized for if it's not completed on time?
Again, to clarify, the CMR is the general contractor, so they're the ones that are hiring all the subs, running the subs through the whole process. And again, there is a period of performance. And typically with any job that's late for what I would say non-excusable activities, then there's typically liquidated damage assessed if it's late.
So once they give us a completion date, that completion date, if it goes beyond that completion date, who's penalized for that if it's not completed?
Well, then that would be the contractor.
The contractor, okay, so we're...
But again, it has to be, not tied to weather, not tied to, there's extenuating circumstances that, of course, would justify an extension to a period of performance.
Change orders, once the price is set on the GMP, the change order, as you mentioned, is a really most important part of dollar changes. How do we ensure that there's less change order going forward? Who authorizes change orders? Is it you or the council?
Okay,
staff or the
well,
council?
with any of our contracts, we don't typically go back to council until the change orders exceed 25% of the contract. Really what we're talking about in terms of cost controls would be between myself as a director and the city manager. We're the ones that approve change orders.
Okay. I do have additional questions later when you bring the contractor up, so I'll pause them here.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, will the city take responsibility or assume responsibility to ensure that the building of the facility is in compliance with international building codes and all that sort of thing? The city is going to use staff to verify that.
So there's a few levels of review for this project or any project. So the drawings are sealed and certified by the registered architect as well as the engineers that do all the design. The city typically, within the building official's office, just like with any other construction job that's performed in the city, reviews all the plans as well as the city fire marshal to make sure that they're in compliance with all the codes. The building inspector and the building official, do all inspections for various phases of work throughout any construction project that's performed in the city. This would be no different. And so throughout the project, at the end of the day, the city bears the burden of quality assurance while the contractor bears the burden of quality control.
Okay. The second question is, because this company is going to be involved with the project at the start, and I imagine will take advantages of opportunities to assess the conditions on the ground, which may not normally be done given a normal construction initiative. That conceivably puts them in a better position before the construction even starts to know and plan for contingencies encountered during construction. And they've already planned for that in advance. Therefore, because it's already been planned for in advance, that reduces the number of change orders. Am I close?
You're correct. I mean, yes, we do not anticipate, for CMAR, we anticipate very few change orders relative to what would probably be one of the other alternatives here, a design build or a design bid build.
Mm-hmm. Because it's been my experience that you have a project and then you get an architect, they design it, and then you get a contractor to do it, and then they get out there and start, and they say, oh, we ran into something.
That's right. You didn't put that in the schedule. This particular spec section was unclear. Now that you've clarified it, that's a change order. Yes, I've seen that many times.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McBurnett?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'd like to withhold that.
All right.
We have an agreement among ourselves that we have complete discussion before we call for a motion. I understand what you want to do, but I have other individuals that still have some discussion points. So if you don't mind, I'll come back to you on that. Ms. Jamison?
I just want to clarify, you said 25%? You don't have a change order unless it overrides 25% of the job? Or is it a dollar amount?
It's 25% of the value of the contract, up to that amount. So, for example, on a $100,000 job, we typically wouldn't be going back to council. When council awards a contract for $100,000, and there's a change order that comes up, we can go up to $20,000 to $25,000 of that value in a change order without having to come back to council.
Right, but we've got some millions of dollar jobs. So that's what I'm saying, 25% would be a lot.
That's correct.
I'm confused. I don't know, where's this written? I don't think we've ever. Yeah, it's a $50,000 limit. Yeah.
Typically, Councilmember, typically in these situations, if there's a change order over $50,000, that
Yes.
come up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I feel better. Yeah.
But yes, we would.
Okay. Mr. Cox?
Randy, I'm sorry, I do have a couple more questions for you. You mentioned, I normally see that the general contractor is different from the CMAR. Why do we select to have the general contractor do both? The contractor normally, I'm trying to think, the general contractor is normally different than the other person. Why are we having the contractor to do both? To oversee their own project?
Maybe our CMAR would be better to answer that question.
Sure.
Please.
We'll bring them up down.
Yeah, I've written several of these for our city clients, and actually typically it is a CMAR who serves as the general contractor as well.
Okay.
There are circumstances where they could choose a separate general contractor, but generally do the same.
Okay. All right. And then I've noticed here on
Well, let's get an answer to that.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm Gary Frazier. I'm the president of CORE.
Hey, Gary.
Happy to answer that. So in all cases, a CMR is at risk, and that at risk means we are guaranteeing the GMP, and we've got a payment performance bond to support that. So in all cases, that CMAR is the contractor. In a CM agent, which is a different delivery method, there's multiple contractors. So the agent doesn't hold a contract, but in the CMAR delivery method, we hold the subcontract. So that's what the at risk implies. Does that answer your question?
It does. I just hadn't seen that in a while, so I was just kind of curious.
Yeah,
why I was there.
the CMR, in addition, has the ability to self-perform work, for example, but we have to compete for that work the same way a subcontractor does. So if we wanted to self-perform, pick a topic, we would submit a closed sealed bid to the city at the same time.
Okay.
So in effect, acting as that.
Thank you. I noticed there's a couple of things. I noticed here we said that the city and CMAR to cooperate on meeting the small business goals. Can you share with us what those goals are, and also sell that same similar language on your website? So can you share with us what those goals are and how you plan to accomplish those goals?
You bet. Those goals vary by city, so we do an awful lot of municipal work. And you saw on the slide some of the surrounding cities here in Dallas. So each city may have different goals, but the beauty of the CMAR process, it's very collaborative, it's transparent. So together, your city staff and us and the design team are able to create bid packages that allow for all types of participation that might be otherwise prohibited. So we can assist in creating packages that are smaller, that we can assist in insurance requirements. There's all sorts of things that we can do, workshops and job fairs to participate and get the local community involved, and we're committed to do that.
Do you use the RCA as well?
We do.
As well as black contractors, Hispanic
contractors, we're members of all of those organizations.
Okay. And so you set goals for inclusions on yourself. What can you mention on one of your last projects? Let's say, if you go back to something.
Yeah, we can take City of Dallas, for example.
Okay.
We've built numerous projects with Dallas libraries, police, fire, and our participation in all of those, Jeff, were north of 45, 48%, sometimes north of 50. We submitted some of that data when we turned in our original qualifications to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Rich.
You bet.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
I was just asking, there is no requirement for MWBE here, right? We don't have a minimum or anything.
So in our particular contract, we did set a goal of 25% SBE involvement, and then as part of another part of the contract is that we would award 1% of the value of the contract. A value of the contracts awarded to SBEs up to $25,000.
One other thing, I like the idea of the contractor being very involved in the design, because then there shouldn't be any problems when the plans come out. It's like you did it, the architect designed it, now we can't build it. I mean, you're going to be involved in that design. So
yeah,
when we get the plans done, they're going to be your plans, and there shouldn't be any real change orders or anything unless there's something unseen, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, let me comment on the change order conversation. The big advantage of the CMAR is we're hired, in this case, before the architect, but oftentimes at the same time. So we're joined at the hip with the design team to maintain that budget, and we've got a fiduciary responsibility to you to make sure that the established budget is designed to. And there are no change orders unless you bring us a change order. And change in scope, a GMP is what it is. We don't bring a change order to you unless there's added scope.
Does it really take 2 years to build this?
No, it takes. His statement up there on construction time was correct at 12 months. ZR is building one for the city of Richardson right now.
Not 2 years.
No.
Take 12 months to build it after you get a permit.
I'm hopeful we can design it quicker than what you portrayed there, but.
I'll just go by my past experience.
Yeah, it's a 12-month construction duration after the design time. So we'll be trying to squeeze that design time.
Ms. Jamison.
He says past experience. Is it federal
Does those percentages line up with the other projects you've been doing? When you talk about the MWBE, does it line up, or is it lower, higher?
You know, it probably varies a little bit by region. I'm pretty consistent in that 30 to 45 range, I think, is probably across the board if I was to research that.
Okay. Seeing no more discussion, Mr. McBurnett.
Make my motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Please vote. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
I just want to mention anecdotally that while the motion that we had before us for $20,000, we're selecting our CMAR, which means we're going to be living with these people for the next 5 years. So it's pretty important that we did have this discussion and got to know them just a little bit. So thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate it. Moving on to item number 5C. Consider approval of a resolution authorizing award of bid number 19-069, 3 roof replacements project to Crawford RW LLC through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure of $645,000. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Bart Stevenson, Director of Parks and Recreation. This item is a little more traditional in nature when it comes to purchasing, in that we did a simple best value bid or best lowest bid, process. But the need to replace the roofs at our city facilities is based upon the historical reoccurring leaks we've had at some of our facilities. And that was confirmed by the findings of the facility condition assessment that was completed back in the summer of 2018. The three facilities that will be included in this project are the City Hall Police Station, Library Recreation Center, and the D.L. Hopkins Senior Center. This was approved in the one-time project fund for fiscal year 19 at a budget of $1.6 million. And then, as an important note, we utilized the professional services of Hewitt Zollers for assistance in creating our construction documents to put them out to bid. Again, our process was utilizing the competitive bid purchasing process to identify the lowest responsible bidder. Our purchasing manager did notify 271 historically underutilized businesses with roofing experience via email with no response. And bid notices were sent out to 61 vendors through our online bid service public purchase. When it came time for bids to be due, we received 9 complete bids. The lowest responsible bid was received by Crawford RW LLC for $645,000. That bid also includes a unit cost for replacement of structure when they take off the layer of roofing, we discover some damaged structural materials. Crawford RW is a Fort Worth-based company specializing in roofing and waterproofing. They were vetted by Hewitt Zollers, and the references were very good. Staff also met with Crawford and confirmed the project details and outlined expectations should they be awarded the contract. And then staff recommends authorizing the award of bid to Crawford. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
A motion to approve, and we have a second. Please vote. Thank you. Motion is approved. Item 5E, take any necessary action as a result of executive session. There is no action to be taken as a result of executive session. Moving on to item number 6, staff and board reports. Received a monthly financial report as of October 31st, 2019. Mr. Summerlin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So, not a lot of activity to report on, but I'll give you some baseline numbers to look at. October is the first month of the fiscal year, so that benchmark would be 8.3% of revenues and expenditures. Our general fund ending unreserved fund balance is $8.3 million, 94 days of operations. Property taxes are slowly a little bit trickling in, but they're not due by the end of January, so we typically see the months of December as being the largest, and then January the next largest for receiving those property tax payments. And of course, there's a 2-month delay with our getting sales tax revenue from the state. So our October sales tax, we'll be receiving that next week. And overall general fund revenues are 2.9% of the budget, and expenditures are about 5.5% of the budget. So on the chart of the general fund revenues, this is the same chart as I prepare each month. The 2020 budget is the kind of pinkish purplish line that goes, it's a straight line, assuming that those revenues are earned equally over each month of the year. And then 3-year actuals are the blue line that goes up, and then the red dot over October is the pinpoint of where we are at the moment. Same thing with property taxes, and again, you see those months of December, January, and February being the months that we collect the most. General fund revenue on sales tax, same thing. We have that 2-month lag to start out the year, and then we have to go 2 months past the end of year to get the final accruals. And then our general fund expenditures, they typically, over the past 3 years, they follow very closely to where our budget line is. Utility fund summary outlook, unreserved fund balance 3.3 million, 62 days of operations. Our utility solid waste revenues, of course, they're a month behind due to our billing process. And so there is some accrual from September, as we had to split things for September that related to the previous year, and then some of the billings extended over. The sanitation fund has an ending fund balance of $573,000, which is about 51 days of operations. And so our utility fund revenues, this is the same chart as I had on the general fund, and the red dot there for October is where we're at the moment. Same thing with the expenditures. And then we look at our one-time project funds, and as you can see, we have quite a few projects that are either in process or haven't yet begun. And so far, based on prior year completed projects, we have approximately $80,441 that we've not yet allocated that are available for other one-time projects, or potentially to cover any overages that we might incur in any of these other projects that haven't been completed yet. I'll entertain any questions.
Seeing no questions, thank you, Mr. Summerlin. Item 6B, receive the Public Works Department quarterly report. Mr. Ramey.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Just to start off with personnel, we've had 2 new hires, or more. These are more of within city promotions. The first one is Garrison Sennett, who came to us from the Parks Department, who is our new excuse me, he's our new maintenance crew leader. He's the shop supervisor for the mechanics. And then we also brought in Catherine Hughes, who used to work for courts, and now she's one of our code officers. Moving on to recent accomplishments. I know that sanitary sewer overflow is always a big issue for council, but we turned in our most recent plan to TCQ outlining what we're going to be doing over the next 5 years for sanitary sewer, and they accepted that, and so we are tracking on SSOs. Within our planning division, again, 2 highlights. In October was National Planning Month, and during that time, planning division did a Dine on the Line with Cedar Hill, where they talked about planning initiatives and best practices and lessons learned with Cedar Hill. They participated in National Night Out. They conducted a Pastries with Planner activity for citizens to come and meet with the planner. And they did a lunch and learn with the seniors at the senior center. In addition, they were recognized by the American Planning Association for public outreach. One of our code enforcement highlights was we went in October. We had a homeless camp off of Camp Wisdom, and as you see, we went in and got that cleaned up. You can see the status of our current sidewalk projects. Again, this is the city crew that's assigned to the street department. We go through neighborhood by neighborhood to fix all the sidewalks, and we're in West Park, and you can see that we're about halfway done with the repairs in that subdivision. Work plan status, we've have 22 items that are in progress, and we've completed 7 of the work plan items that you see there. Running through our metrics, I just want to highlight a few of these. So again, the valve exercised, our goal reflects us exercising our different valves across the city basically once every 2 years with the intent of making sure that they work when we need to turn them off in response to a break. As you can see, due to manpower and just the difficulty of doing it by hand, you see our year-to-date metrics. But as we mentioned before, y'all approved the new valve exerciser trailer, and so once that comes on board, we'll be able to get out and get the valves exercised significantly above the 161. The other thing I wanted to highlight is our goal of large meters, again, is 5% or basically 20-year lifespan. But right now, we're minimizing what we're doing. We're basically just fixing the broken meters only because we're waiting on the automated meters to come in. We don't want to put any meters in until we know that they'll be compliant with whatever we do when we get the automated meter system in place. Moving on, the tanks cleaned. We inspected our tanks in the spring of 2019, and we'll be cleaning these in the summer. And then the manhole is rehabilitated. Again, we try to hit those basically on a 1 every 20 or on a 20-year cycle. We're slowly moving up to that. Our budget increase this year from $65,000 to $80,000. Again, this is one of the areas that does contribute to sanitary infiltration, which creates sanitary sewer overflows. So we've put more money into that account to increase our rehabilitation of our manholes. And then you see our lateral lines that we repair. We typically only try to do about 10% of those in-house, and the rest of those lateral repairs are tied to pipe bursting projects and other wastewater CIP. You see the street maintenance, traffic and signal operations. We've met all our goals for them. Moving on to equipment services, you'll notice that we did have some issues with the patrol vehicles and a fire apparatus for the police vehicles. We had a few Tahoes down for fuel injectors, and maintenance repair of those was delayed due to the GM strike, which affected parts availability throughout the nation. And as well as we still have some old Explorers that we're waiting on the new replacements to come in. And as we've talked about before in previous sessions, that we've continuously had turbocharger problems with the Ford Explorers, which is one of the reasons why we were phasing those out. Moving on to code enforcement, tracking on our goals there. Again, fourth quarter, we did not have any commercial permits that were over $50,000. Subject to your questions.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ramey, for your report. I think it was on page 57 that, yes. Yeah, my question was, the arrangements that we've made with, I guess it was, TCEQ, and they accepted what we proposed to them. I imagine what we proposed to them will have some budgetary impacts.
Yes, sir. So again, the whole idea of being part of the SSO initiative program is so that in the event of a sanitary sewer overflow, we're not penalized for having that sewage go into the water. The penalty for us would be only in case we did not report. But as part of this plan, we do have to present what our plan is in terms of financial outlay every year to continually work towards mitigating our SSOs. And so, yes, what we produce every year is we look at the CIP, and the CIP budget, as we briefed during the budget cycles, laid out our plan over the next 5 years. And so those projects that we showed during the budget for the 5-year plan are the ones that informed our plan that we submitted to TCQ in terms of the amount of money we budget every year for pipe bursting, the different projects that we identified for wastewater replacement activities, as well as money for, again, manhole spray lining, root control, and those other issues. And so it's a combination of what we programmed out of the CIP work, as well as what we budget every year out of the O&M money.
Yeah, and the manhole spray lining is part of that manhole rehabilitation.
That's synonymous, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other question is, do we monitor water loss?
We mean water loss in terms of drinking water. So we do monitor water loss. So when we have a break, we make estimates on how much water that was lost, and then we also have periodic flushing of water lines, specifically in areas where we have like a dead end, and so we monitor the water loss associated with our flushing that we have to do to keep the water quality where it needs to be. And those are the numbers that you see on, well, I have it on page 10. Gallons water lost due to flushing and leaks on slide 62.
And so we have to flush those dead end lines because they don't loop, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so in our capital planning process, are there any plans being considered to possibly look at allocating some dollars to loop those dead-end pipes so that we could kind of cut down on some of that flushing?
Yes, sir. In fact, y'all approved a design contract a few months ago that we're in the process of, which is to do exactly that along Cockrell Hill Road.
Yeah, I slept since then. I forgot that. Appreciate it.
It's also the lakeside contract that was just approved today. Is also
Yes, we have a 12-inch loop that's tied into that project that we just awarded tonight.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Mr. Cooks.
Yeah, I failed to do this, and I'll do it while you're here, Rainey. I want to commend staff, first of all, for the community meeting we've had last Saturday on the 23rd or 24th. Your staff was there at full force. We really appreciate it. The citizens really was engaged in the process. About 12 to 15 people was there. And I continue to get emails saying, thank you, great presentation, great presentation. Jessica, you'll be happy to know that city manager filled in for you really well. He almost did a good job. No, he did a great job in doing a presentation to the citizens and showing what's up and coming. So Kevin, thank you very much for all of your support. And then last but not least, I also want to shout out to our police department for apprehending 2 bad guys that committed a tragic crime in our city. So thank you, Chief, for you and your staff for making that happen in our city and making our city safe. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. What we'll do now is recess our city council meeting at 8:12, and we'll reconvene our working briefing session at 8:12 and bring up Mr. Stevenson to discuss item number 2C, which is discuss the city taking the organizational lead for the Smokin' Blues and Barbecue Community Special Event. So we are now in our working and briefing session. Thank you. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. A little bit of history of the Smokin' Blues and Barbecue. Most of you are aware, but in case you aren't, it was originated by the Duncanville Noon Lions Club in 2016. And just to clarify, they attempted an event in 2015. However, it was rained out. So the first event was actually held was in the spring of 2016. It's a two-day event with centered around the blues music and a sanctioned barbecue cooking contest. Also, as you recall, the council did approve beer and wine sales at all the events. There was no event planned for 2019. As I alluded to earlier, 2 of the previous 4 events have been rained out. As far as the future of the event, the Duncanville Lions Club has determined that it really doesn't have the resources to continue hosting the event. And they have inquired about the city possibly taking the primary organizational and implementation responsibility for this event. The tentative dates have been set for 2020, and I did confirm this with KCBS for September or October of 2020, should we decide to move forward. In addition, staff took the additional steps in preparation for this meeting to meet with a local professional special event promoter regarding the issues the city really should consider should we want to take over the event. This particular organization has a lot of history of doing special events, particularly here in the Metroplex. In fact, they were part of the original efforts in the Bedford Blues event. So they're very familiar with these types of events. They've also been involved with both of the Grapevine events for many years. They aren't currently, but they have been in the past. And they just do a number of events around the country. They do bike events, and as well as they also coordinate all events for the 2 local bowl events, football events here this winter. So some of the recommendations that came from the consultant when we talked about this was to consider the theme of the event. The blues genre is very limited, and so if you really want to try to bring in more people, you really need to broaden the musical offerings. And then this also came from a conversation with KCBS. Barbecue really should not be the focus of the event. It can be a complementary piece of the special event, but folks aren't going to come to a special event just because you're having a barbecue contest. There's nothing really to see. So there is a tasting contest or tasting event at the end. There's really nothing for them to interact with, though, during the day. He noted that the average cost of a 2-day event such as this would be $125,000 to $150,000. A majority of that budget should be focused on the music acts. And just as a comparison, just to kind of get your mind around this, we budget about $110,000 for the 4th of July, which is a 4-hour event. So that gives you an idea of where we're at on this. The event really should be free. Those folks aren't going to go see music acts that they can see free next weekend at the local restaurant or bar. So if you're going to do the event, really in order to get the number of people, you should consider making it a free event. In order to get the families, you really need to have a significantly sized kids area as well, going beyond 1 or 2 bounce houses. Again, continuing with what we've done in the past, alcoholic beverages should be allowed, and then a percentage of those sales go back to the city using a third-party vendor, and then having ample vendors for food and merchandise. And that goes along with the last point, too, and that is consider utilizing a special event planning firm to help you with this, because they have the contacts of multiple vendors, both for food and merchandise around the area, that they can really get to come to your event through these contacts. So, moving to our last slide, some things you want to think about. Again, we have a current budget of about $100,000 in the Hotel Motel Tax Fund for a special event, not sorry, this special event, for a special event. And so any additional funding will most likely involve the general fund. And we've estimated a staff cost alone for this would be about $30,000 for the 2-day event. The $150,000 estimate, what I did confirm today, is all-inclusive, does include the cost of a consultant, should we decide to use a consultant, as well as the cost of the staff that you see here. What it does not include is the monies for marketing and advertising. So that can be estimated about another $10,000. Talk a little bit about sponsorships, because a lot of people, folks, think that when you have an event like this, you can just automatically go out and go, let's get sponsors to help fund the event. And that's a lot more challenging than it sounds. And speaking to my counterparts who have attempted to get sponsorships here locally in Cedar Hill, they really have had a hard time getting that sponsorship levels for their events. In particular, I know that for the Juneteenth event they held last year, they used a private firm to come in and help them get sponsorships that didn't go very well. So, in addition to that, this event would be competing with all the other nonprofit entities in Duncanville that are looking for sponsors for their events and their programs. And then, again, as we get through the discussion, should we decide to go forward with taking on this event, we really need that decision to be made by mid-January. And that is for both KCBS to put it on their calendar, as well as allow adequate planning time for staff and possibly a consultant to put this event together. So with that, I'll open it up with any questions or comments, feedback, direction that you have at this time.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Go to slide 10, please. You mentioned, well, on slide 11, actually, it showed that the KCBS really doesn't feel that this is an event that they should be the focus for.
Correct.
Is it the fact that the Lions Club didn't know that, or KCBS didn't give them that advice? Because everything that Lions did, it was always a focus of the food, and everything else was secondary to that. Yeah. And I'm very interested to see that KCBS themselves say that they should not be the top billing, they ought to be secondary, if not tertiary.
Right. I certainly don't have any firsthand knowledge of how those decisions were made. I do know that the folks who were involved with the initial planning of the Smoking Blues and Barbecue event, they were interested in barbecue. They were barbecuers, or they were smokers. So they wanted to see that part of the event be prominent. I can't speak to whether they had those conversations with KCBS prior about whether they should be the event as opposed to just being a component of the overall event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about staff, does that include police and fire?
Yeah. Yes, it does. Police, public works, and parks.
Does your department have someone already that would be the primary point of contact with this promoter to pull this puppy off?
We do not have a specific position for special events. However, we like our 4th of July and our event coming up this Friday with the parade. It falls on our recreation superintendent as the lead person, and then everyone else helps out a lot, so including myself.
So, do you feel your department can handle this without an additional person coming on payroll?
If we utilize the services of a consultant, yes.
Okay.
Without the use of a consultant, I would say that would be difficult.
Do you have any opinions about the city's ability to handle this, even with a professional promoter?
With a professional promoter and adequate time to plan, I do feel like we can do it. But again, we need adequate time and the assistance of a professional promoter and or a position at some point, should we not need a promoter.
In the past, we have looked at the importance of a city having a prime event that attracts people to it. Does this professional promoter feel that this event would be that top billing that would draw people here, and it would become our hallmark event for our community?
Certainly it has that potential. Again, I think,
or is there something else they feel that would be more relevant in terms of becoming our, the gem in the crown for us?
I certainly has the opportunity to become that signature event. Again, going back to that very first point.
Signature event, that's the word I was looking for.
But to go back to that first point, he does have concerns about focusing just on the blues. he highly recommended that we open that up to more of a generic offering, if you will, of music, more widely broadened to bring in other groups, just folks who like the blues.
So music is a broad umbrella.
Music is what's going to
top.
bring people, correct. Music and kids.
And the music would be various genres, not just blues.
That's what he
what they're saying?
recommended, correct.
If I'm reading you
I mean,
right.
even Bedford Blues, they have a lot of blues, but they also their main acts are classic rock. So they've moved away from just all blues as well. So.
Okay, Mr. Anderson.
So I have a lot of experience, with this kind of stuff back in the Belmont Hotel days when we used to have Barefoot at the Belmont, which was very successful for many years. And I also was around in the Oak Cliff areas when we started that blues and barbecue that they did, and we kind of copied that. And I always thought it wasn't as good because it was already happening right up the road. I didn't think it would. I mean, it just seemed like it needed to be our own. It needed to be our own, kind of our own flavor, something more unique to Duncanville. Also, I wonder about a festival, a 2-day festival. I mean, I'd love to have Woodstock here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would think that, the rest of us may not like, some may not like it, but I would love to have that kind of event. But I wonder if we wouldn't be better served with like a series. Like at the Barefoot at the Belmont, we had a series that started the end of April because of the weather in May. So you have those good weeks, and you have like a 6-week series, or you skip a week, and you'd have really great bands. Because for $10,000, you can get a really great band. A great band. You can get some good bands for $5,000, but you can get a great band for $10,000, $15,000. You get like a serious good, band. And, we partnered with KXT, public radio, and partnering with them was like huge because, they first of all, they paid the band, and then they set our name on the radio like thousands of times for free, and then we put up, rooms, and we did other things. We got the food and beverage sales. So we got, it was a huge plus, financially plus, marketing wise plus. The music was like superior music, and we sold out every one we ever did for like 7 years. And so wondering if there's a bigger bang for the buck, like in a series, like you get used to coming here, because I think we have, of course, I think that our community theater is underutilized. I think it ought to have more stuff in it that ought to be more younger, relevant. I say, not that it's not relevant. I know there's some good stuff, but I think that we could become a music kind of a hub, like a music, because we have such a diverse culture here, in Duncanville, and mixing up the kind of music. I think we're close enough. And it's easy to get here. Our park is great. We have some other things that are happening on Main Street. I know of another thing that's happening right now with a major theater who's trying to move in on Main Street, music and theater group that's trying to move in. And I'm just wondering if we're, I want to do that. I think events is important. I think we got to do events, but I want them to be in the excellence range, even if they're smaller, but in the excellence range that you would go, you got to go to Duncanville to see this band that's playing. You got to go. It's not like, it's got to be in the excellence. Whatever we do, I think it's just got to be that. And that doesn't mean it has to cost $150,000 or $100,000. Sometimes we can get excellence for a lot less. And I'm not so sure that we should give away free. They should be free totally. I'm not so sure about that. It costs, eventually these kind of things I think could stand on their own, because I've seen it done. I've seen it done in many different places, and so that's just my thoughts. And I don't have the answers here, but I think having a pro work on this, working, because with staff and police and fire and everybody supporting a pro that actually does this. I think you could do it with bike races and running races and music, and we have so many things around us we could take our cue from, like, you know, from everything from like Cedar Ridge Preserve. It's such a huge, I mean, you can take a cue from that about what people will come here for. And I think there's many things that we could be doing. I would like to spend more time thinking about that and planning, and incrementally maybe doing some things, maybe a more incremental steps to spending this money to do that. But that's my thoughts there.
Hey, Ms. Jameson.
Yes, talking about Woodstock, they spent 3.1 million and took in 1.8. So they didn't make money. That was the 3.1 was equivalent to 15 million in today's terms. So I agree that more thought needs to be put into it than just doing this. And I had suggested even rather than barbecue, you know, but fish fry. I think fish is less expensive than beef. And if you're not doing because what they had started out with was a competition. And I don't think that went over well because no one cared. They wanted to eat, they thought they were going to eat barbecue and they didn't.
Right.
They paid $20 to come in and hear the music, and if they wanted to have the privilege of buying beer or wine,
Correct.
and then they had food trucks that they could go and then turn around and purchase food for money. And so I think there were a lot of mistakes that were made, and I think that this should be something that we do talk about, think about, and plan, and not just by the seat of our pants. I saw a lot of, I stood at the door when people were asked to pay $20, and they would walk in and then they were like, oh, and then walk back out. Because if you have a family of, 5, that's $100. And then you have to turn around and buy food from the food truck, and all you're getting to hear is the band, and you could hear them outside the chain link fence. You didn't have to pay to go hear them. So I just think we ought to think about it and have it better. And the music also, because there are a lot of genres and different people that live here, and maybe smaller bands and change them out more frequently or something. I don't know, but I think it should be something that's thought out, especially if you do a 2-day festival, that it's thought out. And I talked to the city manager also about you either have to purchase the food, or because in a giveaway, then we'd have to have tickets or wristbands, because we could not feed Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of a thought process that needs to go into it.
Mr. McBurnett.
I'm not going to disagree. There needs to be a lot of thought put into it, but Mayor, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you. It was a music festival with a barbecue component. Also, it was a startup event, and it's something that Duncanville needed. It's something that was beneficial to Duncanville as well. This event actually ended up supporting the Texas Lions Camp, and part of it. I tend to agree with Monty. I don't agree that the event should be free. I disagree about how many people walked off. We had quite a good attendance as well. The kids under 12 were free, so it did encourage families to come and stuff. So again, I'll say the planning, but I just don't want the misconceptions being put out here about this event for Barbecue and Blues.
Mr. Cooks.
Hey, as I look at this, I think there's two strong components of this. One would be a professional promoter who's used to this. I know everybody has their expertise across the line here, but at the same time, a professional promoter would really tell us a little bit more, like we would do a consultant in any case, to say, here's what I've seen be successful in the past. Have you identified a promoter that you got information from already?
We did talk to one. I know there are others out there. This particular group, I worked with in the past. I know some of our other staff members have worked with them in the past in other cities as well. So that's just one that we knew. So that's how we chose them to at least get some information from. But we have not obviously entered into any kind of contracts or anything at this point.
Yeah, I just think we look at it from a professional promoter standpoint, and then the second part that ties in there. I mean, we talked about advertisement. Usually, advertisement is not a part of these numbers.
Correct. Marketing is the way that they handle the events. Marketing is not part of that $150,000.
Okay.
That would be he doesn't do marketing. This particular firm does not do the marketing piece. That would be on the city.
So two things. We're doing a great job marketing, even in parade, as I drive across the city and see the banners across the city. But an event like this, advertising is going to be really key, because not only are we trying to pull in people throughout our own city, we're trying to spread it out, will be more. So I think that advertising costs really need to be considered into this number somehow as you look at it. But it cannot go off without two things, in my opinion, and that's a professional promoter and a strong advertising firm that'll help. And then what other component that may help, and that is, as you talk about getting sponsors, there are people out there that will work sponsorships without charging the facility anything. They'll get their money off of getting sponsorships.
Right,
So
and that's what I alluded to with Cedar Hill. They did do that.
Yeah.
And they just did not get a good response. They have not gotten a good response the last few years.
But the good part is they don't lose any money from it, though.
They don't
right?
lose any money, but they just don't get enough to cover the cost of their events. And so a lot of folks think that those sponsorships are going to cover their $150,000.
Yeah, no, it'll cover some.
They'll bring in some, yes, but they're not going to cover the entire cost.
Yeah.
That's what I want to make sure that everybody was clear about.
So those are my only two things: professional promoter and advertising it very strongly, but it has to be fit into those numbers as well.
Okay, Mr. Hugman. Oh, okay.
I just want to say, and I didn't want to make sure that people don't think I'm criticizing what we did. I think we did good and we did the best we knew, and I want to make sure I'm not criticizing. I think the effort to do something great was what. I mean, I think that's what we should be. That's what we're discussing. I think that's what we all want. I think we want something great. Right. I hope the council wants. I mean, we want that excellence and to strive to that. I just want to make sure we're
right.
That you didn't think I was criticizing the people that put so many hours and work before to put those on, because I applaud that effort.
Right.
So
now you guys have a goal from your last retreat of increasing the special events in the community. So all we really need from a staff perspective is some direction from you as to what you want to see happen. And we will go out and find the options for you and bring those back to you to ensure that what we bringing forward to you as far as a special event is in your vision.
Do you know, there's a guy named Jeffrey Lyles that runs the Kessler Theater, and I've been to shows over and over down there at the Kessler, and you don't always have to pay a lot for these shows. There's never been a bad show there, ever I've seen, ever. It's like amazing, this place is, the people that have been. Have you been? Have you been? I mean, there's no, I don't know of any, and so having a guy like Jeffrey Lyles, this guy is a guy that's still got his concert tickets from 1983. I mean, this guy loves music so much. He knows music. He knows who will get us people here. So having that really pro that understands what we're after, if it's after music, which I think we should. I love the fact that we're going after music. And having that music pro, maybe the number one person you need even in joint with a promoter, with the.
Okay, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of direction, I would just say that we want to provide something for the community that they can identify with, something special. The people in the community get very excited about 4th of July. They get very excited about the Christmas parade. So we want them to get excited about this as well. And also, I hope as we move forward with it, it's a quality of life issue. And so quality of life is really not always measured effectively by dollars and cents. I think the way to measure it is in terms of participation and interest and enthusiasm. So I think we need to look at what we're doing, the deliverables. Those are deliverables in terms of what we're doing. And then I also agree, and that's why I recommended that the city take it over, because if we take it over, then we can put the ticket prices at the level where people can afford it. Now, you know, the other thing it will do from a dollars and cents standpoint, it will affect that. That's why I say we need to look at it in terms of a quality of life project and put it at the level where people will participate. And then if they participate and we give them a reason to come, then I think it will be very successful. And we give them a reason to come. It has to be something different from what's already out there, because, you know, everybody does a 4th of July, everybody does a Christmas. So we want to do something unique, whatever unique is, to get people to come.
Mr. Hugman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. So as Bart said, we brought this to you because for a number of reasons. One, at your retreat, you talked about the importance of branding the city, of bringing something unique, a signature event. You talked about this particular festival and the city promoting some kind of event that would bring people in. What's driving this tonight, though, too, is, as we said, KCBS has some tentative dates in September, October of next year, but we have to firm that up by the middle of January. So really what that means is if you want to do a barbecue-style event with KCBS, we will need a decision on this by the middle of January. Now, if your intent is not to necessarily do that, but look at some kind of a music festival without KCBS, then we're not tied to that time frame. But we do need, other than if you want to do something in the fall of 2020, the sooner we start, the better. So we're still looking at needing to start after the first of the year. If that is the route you want to go. If you want to go with smaller events, then that's different, and that's a different approach then. But then the last thing I would mention is that when we talked about what we have budgeted $100,000 in the hotel occupancy tax fund for promoter, for special event. But being in a hot fund, it has to meet those requirements of under the state law. So again, that's why we talk about a 2-day event, because it's more likely to bring in tourists from out of town who will stay. Those kinds of things. If you're doing something smaller, we would have to probably find another source of funding. So again, those are just some things, and we're looking for the direction tonight because of the time frame, and wanting to know how you want us to, what you would like to do, or if you need more information from us, that we have time to do that.
If I could sum up, I think the consensus is we'd like to have a signature event. Whether it includes KCBS, I don't think we know that yet. What we are hearing, I think, and what your promoter has also told us, is music is probably the primary. It's what's the draw. And going with what Mr. Anderson is saying, you know, how do we get those people? Mm-hmm. is really the first step in this. Well, let me back up. I guess the first step is that we as a council have to have agreement that we want to pursue developing a signature event for our city. If the answer to that is yes, then it goes to what everyone else has said, and that is we need a professional to help do it. It's not going to be something we're going to do in-house. So that next step is that we're going to have to put out an RFQ to find a professional promoter, not just one that we're talking to just to gather information and research. We're going to have to do that. Is my logic process correct in terms of that? In terms of what we as a council need to undertake in terms of the job before us?
I would say yes. Again, kind of go back to what City Manager Hoagland said, though, we need to decide whether barbecue will be a part of that or not, even as a secondary or tertiary component, so we can let KCBS know whether we want to save a date or not.
See, I don't know
So-
if we were to do a procurement action to find a professional promoter, if that professional promoter is going to say, you really don't need KCBS, it ought to be this. And that's what I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I'm wondering, that is really the next step to find a professional promoter to help us understand what should be the components of this signature event and whether it should include KCBS and possibly is even tertiary, depending on what Mr. Anderson is, with his experience and so forth, is telling us.
Can I add? So I wonder if we shouldn't, I mean, we have such a great music, I mean, we have such a good music vibe coming out of our high school right now. Okay, we have, I mean, I see them practicing, and they come up here just ad hoc bands play in the park. And there's some I mean, we have a lot of talent coming up. I wonder if we shouldn't be talking to somebody at the high school band and the local musicians and artists that we have, for one thing, and just at least talking to them or bringing them into some kind of committee that would be formed. And then secondly, I think, Mr. City Manager, that on the hot tax at the Belmont, when we had these concerts, people came from all over. We had lots of staycations where people would be coming from Frisco, and they'd be coming just to spend the night. You know, they'd come to see the band late, have a few drinks, spend the night. You know, so I think you could justify overnight stays, and it could actually be on a Thursday night, you know, even a night that's slower. And then, but I think, and the RFQ, I think that you got to have a local. We have to figure out how to create this in a local culture. So if an RFQ's out and you have somebody from someplace else that's outside of the area, I mean, it really has to be carefully thought. That part has to be thought out. Because we're talking about the expression of the local culture. And it may not be that the band is a local culture, but I mean, that's where we're going to be. That's where we're going to look unique. I mean, that's where we're going to look like who we are. And that's what we did in Oak Cliff. I mean, I also have experience with the Texas Theater and helped start through the Oak Cliff Foundation, the Oak Cliff Film Festival, which is currently going on. Now, people come from all over to attend the film festival, but the culture, the local vibe is all about local people. And I think in Duncanville, I can tell you right now, we have a lot more creative people here than we think we do. Musicians, writers, poets, you know, we have a lot here. We need to figure out how to pull them out. There's a lot of musicians here. I mean, they just come here to sleep, though. Then they go to Deep Ellum or they go to other places. But we have a lot here. And I experience it, the reason I get to experience it so much is being around the new coffee shop, and even Mudhook, and you see them coming around downtown and Main Station. And there's a group that's trying to move in here. Cedar Valley College right now is ending their theater group and their music group, and they're talking about moving that whole system over here, going privately into Duncanville Main Street. They want to be here because it's the best walkable, and I mean, this will be a big deal if it happens, if it happens. But and it is happening. But that local, I'm rambling a little bit. I apologize, but what I'm trying to say is that local culture, that local vibe, that local, you know, X factor, secret sauce is what we're looking for to become great.
We as a council need to give staff some direction tonight. And that direction needs to be, you know, to go out and, I'm thinking that direction needs to be, first of all, a rewind. I believe we have consensus, if not total agreement, among council that we would like to have a signature event for our city that perpetuates itself. It's not a one-time thing. It becomes something signature that goes on for years and years and continues to be the crown jewel for our crown, in our crown for us. To do that, we're going to need a professional. So my thinking, and I can't speak for council, is that we need to give direction to staff to go out and find a professional promoter, and that needs to be the first step.
We should, as a council, maybe talk to some different promoters and then maybe more definitive in what we're looking for, rather than just a promoter.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's.
But, I mean, rather than
staff
telling
would-
staff to
we're-
go
we're
find
tasking-
one.
We're tasking staff to go find a professional promoter.
No, but that's not what I said. I said staff could bring back some names or some people, some promoters who have done things in the past, and maybe we as a council look at those and find one that was more along what our thinking was.
That's what they do.
Right, but I mean, rather than staff picking someone.
I didn't say staff would pick. I said
Well, that's
staff
what I
would
heard.
seek to bring us a professional promoter that we're going to choose to do this work for us.
Okay, that's not what I said. I said staff bring us some different promoters for us to.
That's the RFQ.
I understand what an RFQ is, but
You could possibly, there's enough guys around that you maybe bring some people down here to talk to that maybe we're not going to hire like a Jeffrey Lyles or like a Mike Snyder who does Sons of Herman Hall, or you got people around, maybe we bring them in for a work session just to talk and hear, and even our band, our local musicians, try to get the word out to our local musicians to come in and like talk to us, to brainstorm or have a work session. I agree, not just the RFQ, but maybe we talk to some people and kind of get some ideas.
That's what the RFQ does. The RFQ goes out and it finds individuals that would like to participate in what we're doing.
These are people that maybe wouldn't participate, would just come and talk to us to help us.
yeah, and I don't know if you do RFQs.
For the
on
dollar amount that we're
promoters.
talking about, we can't just
Well,
monkey with this thing. We're talking.
Not to
bucks
help, not to help us run it, just help us kind of give us some direction, some ideas of what they might do if they were in our situation. That's all that's what
They
I'm.
can do that for free?
Yeah, I think there would be. I think there's people that would do that.
If I could interject just real quick, if I could look to the staff who's dealt with promoters more, but in my mind, a promoter will promote whatever you ask them to promote in an event. Are there consultants who would work with the city to determine what is a best type of signature event for this community? Are there groups that do that, or people who do that? Or is that something we kind of need to do more with the council and community? And I'm looking to the two people who have worked with that before, Jessica and Bart. Because I think council really, it sounds to me like first and foremost, you need to decide what is the signature event you want to have. And then
And I did just confirm with Jessica that the group that we have been talking to, they do just that. They come in and they work with you, they sit down with you and they decide from you, what is it that you're looking to accomplish? Is it something that you want to bring in 100,000 people, 50,000 people? Is it just local? And then from there, they talk about budget. And then you talk about what is you trying to, what kind of music you want to bring in, what kind of things you want to have involved. And they will give you from their experience as to what's successful and what isn't. That's what we talked a lot about in our meeting with them is, okay, what works? And that's when it came out that just having blues music is probably not the best idea. So.
And I do also want to address, Councilmember Anderson, your suggestions and your comments. I will tell you that those are things that we definitely have to have involved in a signature event. You have to, I mean, I've put these on for over 20 years for different municipalities on large scales. So you have to have that local talent like what you're talking about, but it's a component. It's one portion of an overall event. And that's just it, is that an event, as we've talked about, has multiple bands. It includes the high school band. It includes the grassroots efforts. However, it's all put together to bundle to create that flair and that flavor and that branding that you want for your community. So it does encompass all the things that you're talking about. But as Bart talked about and as the mayor stated, we need to have that promoter hired. If you want to do something in the fall, in January, we have to make that decision. Otherwise, that keeps getting pushed back. And if the council's not ready to move forward on that, that's your decision. But you just have to be aware of, they have to have time to prepare. And all the things, all the comments and suggestions that you're talking about, that's what the promoter's going to use to build this event. And they can give us input and say, you know, this worked, this doesn't work. The promoter that we talked to, not that that's the only one, I worked with him in the city of Mesquite, and he put on the event there, and he changed the event from what didn't work to what would work. and he gave suggestions to council, and council made those decisions. So it's all encompassing. All the things that you're talking about, you're spot on. But if you want to move forward, you just have to make that decision.
I have a question. Is there another Stevie Ray Vaughan? I mean, if we had something like that.
To what, I'm sorry?
Barry.
Actually,
He's still
I do, there actually is, and when I talk about, I mean, there is actually, we actually have that kind of local talent coming right out of our southern Dallas County.
Well, that's what we need.
We haven't, they're here right now. They're all over the place, and
There's a band that practices in the senior center parking lot every Wednesday night, and they have nothing at all to do with high school. They're professionals. I've got their card, and they're fantastic. They're New Orleans. They're New Orleans Jazz, and they practice in our senior center parking lot every Wednesday night.
Need to come out more often.
Look, we want to talk, we want a professional. Whether we put that person's name as a consultant or a promoter, go find one. Or find 3 or 4, please. Is that okay? Say that? Ask staff to bring us some people to talk to so we can figure this thing out. Now, whether we do it in January, I don't know.
Can we invite, if you were willing to maybe do like a workshop before the January meeting, since I know you're going to be out next council meeting, but if we do, like, if y'all are willing to come in at 5 o'clock maybe on that, prior to that council meeting, and we invite this promoter to come in, and we may have to pay him to come, but at least he can come in and y'all can talk with him then and get those questions and help develop this idea of what you want to do. Doesn't mean we have to go with that person then if y'all want to move forward, but at least that still gives us time if you want to try to set something for September, October 2020. We still have, we'll need a decision pretty much that night, but at least maybe that'll help you frame your idea of what you want to do. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Can we make sure that maybe the signature event may be a series? Can we leave it just open that it might be a series? Maybe it's not.
I think that's something we would talk with them about.
It could be get professional counsel on.
So it could be one or the other, or both.
Or both. That's where we're going to get a professional to come in and give us some guidance.
All right, we'll try to, then if that's agreeable to everyone, 5 o'clock, and we'll set that up, and we'll try to get arranged for him or someone else to come in, and y'all can workshop with them on that.
When's the next meeting?
No, this will be January 7th, council meeting.
Should we give KCBS the courtesy to let them know that we're not sure?
Yeah, I'll certainly reach out to them, let them know
We've
tomorrow.
talked about it in city council, but there's no firm decision as yet in terms of them being involved in whatever we do.
Correct. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. All right, so that concludes at 8:55. That concludes our briefing session. And so I'm calling adjournment at 8:56. Thank you.